So, this is Greg. This is Armored Skeptic. This is, I think, post breakup. Not sure. I assume you remember vague recollections of the Armored Skeptic. This is the second video I've done in his series called History is a Lie. This is his playlist. He has more videos than this sort of floating around, but these are the ones he put on his playlist. We'll probably watch some other ones. I'm doing this whole series. This guy fell off the fucking flat earth, dude. He fell right off the edge of the flat earth and into conspiracy land. He's so fascinating. I don't know. There's a part of me that revels in this because he's sort of always been a fart sniffer about himself and like shitty. And the other part of me is like, clearly this guy's on one. And so I feel for him a little bit. But like, he's been on one for years and there's nothing I can do about it. And his actions are dumb. So, I mean, let's go.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of Armored Conspiracy Files. Still sitting on that name. This series is very different from anything I've ever done before. I get a little bit more close up and personal, and I describe some of the more obscure conspiracy theories that I've researched over the years. It's just some harmless speculation.
He is not just trolling. He is not trolling.
Last time I gave you an introduction into
He's genuinely not trolling. We have watched the end of this series. Yeah.
A grand unified theory postulating that all of written history is fabricated and that humanity actually progressed completely differently than we were taught in school, and our civilization went through a major reset.
Yeah. What I actually had watched the first video in this, History is a Lie. I'd watched this first years ago when it came out, 3 years ago or so. He got mad at me for watching it and was like, "You just don't get it, bro. You don't get me." No, dude, this guy thinks he's just real smart. And he thinks he knows when the end of the world's gonna come, and he thinks he's playing a role in it. Like he's a weirdo.
As recently as the Victorian era. If you missed part 1, you're definitely going to want to see that first. I'm not just saying that to get more views. It really does set up the series and give you context for everything that I'm going to be talking about. And the plan with this series is to eventually build up to explaining who we really are and why we can't remember anything about our past. But today's video, I promised you that I was going to be talking about Tesla technology and how it's actually much older than the work of Nikola Tesla and actually dates back to the beginning, to Atlantis, to ancient Egypt.
Look. Who knows the same person who helped create Harold Penisman would end up like this? Sad times, sad times. True. He played too much Assassin's Creed. Oh no, I forgot which one it is. This one? I don't know why all these say 200 on them. I don't know why that is. All my tabs say 200.
Some people call this antiquitech, like antique technology, or technasmia. That's the other name I've heard. In this series, I'm just going to refer to it as old world technology. This is actually the subject that got me started into the whole alternative history thing, and it was sort of by accident. I've heard the theory that Tesla technology is actually based on much older technology before, but it all sort of just clicked in my head by accident one day when I was researching Tesla technology and the mud flood at the same time.
The last video was on mud flood, and at the end of the last video, he didn't imply, he explicitly said that he was a person capable of solving complex electricity problems at a greater skill level than Nikola Tesla, though he's never made one himself, of course.
What I found was a pattern, a grid layout of buildings that persisted throughout history, which ties ancient Egypt together with the Victorian era. But before we get started here, there seemed to be a little bit of confusion about the last video. People seem to think that I'd turned to the dark side or something. This series is just for fun. Don't take it too seriously, okay?
It's just for fun. Spoilers. In this video, right here in this video, he complains that people aren't taking him seriously enough and that people don't watch the videos enough anymore. Because of, he wants people to know how, like, he's genuinely worried about the end of the fucking world because of this stuff. Okay, Greg, it's just for fun. His entire life for the last 3 years has been devoted to this. It's just for fun. Wowzers.
Now let's get started. All right, ready? Go. Guys, my
3 years of hindsight has done a lot for this
third
one.
eye is wide open and I have literally solved the riddle of the Sphinx. I'm being completely serious. But before I risk my life giving you all of this hidden information, I'm gonna need a little bit of help from my sponsor, ExpressVPN.
Thanks.
Hacker Express person can't allows you it is express effective.
Cool.
And there's so
Jesus Christ.
and your description end. Please get email.
Jesus fucking Christ. How embarrassing.
33. If you're into conspiracy theories, chances are you've heard that number before. There are 33 degrees of Freemasonry, right? Who needs Freemasonry? I can figure all this shit out on my own. I'm sure that you've been told 1,000 times before that when you see the number 33 in media, that they're indicating the Illuminati or Freemasonry.
What if, or Grant Hill, Detroit Pistons great Grant Hill, Hall of Famer, Duke, anybody? He needs to touch grass and smoke some weed. He might smoke weed already. I don't know, though. Maybe not. I would love to talk to Greg. I know that I piss him off. Grant Hill's in on it. Fuck. Jesus died when he was 30-something. Go piss. That's fucking right. I thought I was wearing my Bad Boys hoodie for a second, but I'm not. Never mind. I don't know, man. First vid in the series went up in June 11th. 2020. His split with Shu was announced on June 23rd, 2020. There's real conspiracy. There's the real one. Yeah. It's... I don't think it's a coincidence that these videos and that split was happening at the same time. I believe she also got a little annoyed at me at the time, and they split up very shortly after that. Because I remember reaching out to him when he split up because he was like super publicly broken up about it. And I was like, hey, man, I hope you're okay, dude. And because he was just freshly mad at me for watching this video. Anyway, or that video before.
But that's not entirely true. 30 degrees latitude, 30 degrees longitude. That's the exact location of the Giza plateau. Egypt is where it all began. Have you ever heard of electrum? It's actually a naturally occurring dirty gold. It's sort of a mix between gold, silver, and copper. It was referred to as green gold by the Greeks, or also white gold. And do you know where you find it? Coating the tops of pyramids and obelisks. Gold and silver and precious metals in electronics today, because of how conductive they are, it's really good for electronics. Of all the subjects that I'm going to talk about in this series, this is definitely my favorite.
It's so interesting.
It has the juice?
POV, you were meeting someone you swiped right on when you saw their profile and said, I'm really into medieval aesthetic logic and doing my own research. Don't mind my looks. I won't treat you like those other fuck boys. Uh-oh. Thanks for the 50 biddies. It's fascinating to me.
Good for electronics.
That the skeptic guy does not see the simple answer being reasonable in regards to why ancient cultures liked the shiny metals. The shiny, malleable metals that became a cultural signifier of wealth. You have no idea why they would have put those on obelisks. That's fascinating, Greg. Definitely, it was actually like sky electricity.
Of all the subjects that I'm going to talk about in this series, this is definitely my favorite. Tesla has always been a great point of fascination for me. I've even gone as far as to call him my hero, which there's very few people I actually admire like that. The famous Tesla...
That's cringe.
Tesla Tower on Long Island, the image of it transferring electricity to the atmosphere, this is just etched in my mind. This laboratory was like something out of a comic book, and I know that it's a museum today, but I really wish that I could have seen this thing in working order. The tower is destroyed now. They took it down at the end of the experiment when the money ran out, and also famously after Tesla died, his entire collection of blueprints and patents were stolen from his hotel room by the United States government. He wouldn't be considered too revolutionary today, but for his time, he was like on some other level. And though a handful of his more important inventions still persist today, like alternating current and the electric motor, the overall spirit of his work has gone completely extinct. Luckily, we can still look up a few of the remaining diagrams from his unclassified projects, and electrical engineers and scientists seem to be able to reproduce aspects of his work, like Tesla coils, used more as like a party trick. But most people seem to be completely confused about what he was actually trying to do with this Tesla tower and the whole wireless energy experiment. Part of the confusion actually has to do with the way that the media reported on it. That's surprising.
He can't help it. This is all joke, guys. He's joking.
Tesla was actually trying to do was get electricity waves to resonate throughout the atmosphere so that it could be picked up anywhere with wireless energy receivers. The problem with electricity waves is they actually diminish over distance the further away you get from the source.
Did he say electricity waves? I've never heard that term in my life.
The weaker the strength of the field. I mean, his tower...
Electricity waves. If I type in electricity, I'm going to electromagnetic field, right? Electricity waves. No. This is wave power. This is like hydroelectric wave power. Nope. Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. That's a... Electricity waves.
Was grounded deep under the earth down into the water table, but that wasn't the business end of the machine. The business end was the tower. Tesla was actually running an alternating current generator off of an oil engine inside of his laboratory, and he was pumping that electricity up through the tower. The inside of the tower actually contains a Tesla coil. Tesla quite famously created electrical fields that wouldn't harm anyone that walked through them, but any electrical device, like say a light bulb, would turn on completely wirelessly. Tesla's experiment actually included two buildings, both the Tesla Tower and a brick building with a chimney, the laboratory. Both of those facilities were actually connected to each other. Now, I'm a complete layman myself. I really don't know much about electrical engineering. I've just heard this theory before that Tesla was copying the technology at the Giza plateau. People have been arguing that the Giza plateau was a power plant for like 30 or 40 years now. The theory is that with a gold or copper capstone at the top of the Great Pyramid, which was collecting atmospheric energy, it could then
collecting it?
Be drawn down
with the Ark of the Covenant, of course,
into the King's Chamber, where inside of the sarcophagus was like an Ark of the Covenant sort of device.
Yeah, you know how the Ark of the Covenant device. We'll just skip. We're going right over that. We're going to skip past that. You just know, something like it.
And then, somewhere, the electricity was discharged into the surrounding atmosphere as a field.
That's great.
Already know that the Egyptians had a little bit of electricity. We found devices known as Baghdad batteries, because Baghdad had them too, I guess. Basically, they put copper and zinc in grape juice, and they were able to create a small charge. Mythbusters actually explored the theory that the Ark of the Covenant was actually part of a circuit. One of the elements of this theory is that the Great Pyramid device required water to be running underneath it. And there are a series of aquifers and tunnels that are underneath the Giza plateau, and they do go beneath the Great Pyramid, which you should be able to access from the well in the basement of the Great Pyramid, but you can't because they've intentionally filled it with sand. The theory is that the water running beneath the pyramid helps amplify the atmospheric collection process somehow. I don't know if I fully understand, but Tesla had the same thing. He actually had copper wires running down from the tower down into a large copper disc that was sitting in the water table. But free energy, atmospheric energy collection is a real thing, and you can even do it from home. The principle is so simple that even an idiot like me can understand it. So the atmosphere has what we call an ionosphere. It is a series of sheets of ions. Ions are just molecules or atoms that have either been given an extra electron or have been deprived of one of their electrons. The natural state of our atmosphere is to be positively charged. That actually happens as particles are being bombarded into our atmosphere, and usually, naturally, our ground is negatively charged. But that's just on clear days. During stormy, rainy days, it can all get flipped around. All that matters for the energy collection device is that electricity is traveling through the wire in a direction. It doesn't matter which one. So ion sheets, they don't like to go around.
Lunos! Tier 2 in next to 59 months. When the world has to walk in on? Well, he's talking about how the Pyramid of Giza is a battery. Of course, and you knew that. Pyramid of Giza is actually a battery. To power what? And it uses the Ark of the Covenant to do so.
Things. They actually like to go over them, sort of like you're covering it in a blanket. So when you build a tall structure like a church tower, the ions are actually traveling up and over and are actually collecting and stacking at the top. They're concentrating on a single point above the structure. So the higher you build it, say at the top of a giant mountain, the more sheets of ions are going to be collecting at the top of that antenna, meaning the more electricity is going to be traveling through it. So if you have like a lightning rod or a weather vane or a church cross or that crescent moon at the top of a mosque, if you were to just connect a grounded wire to that, you have electricity.
Not like a lot of it. I do, Forrest Espion. He wasn't my buddy, though. It feels very familiar. Armored Skeptic is one of dozens of my peers that have gone off the fucking deep end.
It has the juice?
Every time someone mentions free energy, unironically, 100% electrical engineers scream in agony. Like, how much electricity do they think is going around, like, in the air? Because that's like a lot.
Like every old building around the world. That's how easy it is to create atmospheric energy in these already existing old buildings. Almost all of their roofs are made from copper.
I'd previously demonstrated generating power using atmospheric electricity. A hexacopter was used to lift one end of a wire high up into the air. Meanwhile, the other end of the wire was connected to a corona motor near the ground. Electricity then flowed through the wire and...
If you need a pyramid-related palate cleanser after, may I suggest Puppet History's episode on...
It has the juice?
Hatshepsut? Okay, thank you for the 100 biddies. I do like pyramid stuff. All the electricity and assume it will be mine. It will, Mr. Whiskers. Thanks for the biddies. You too can keep it all. You can keep all of the electricity. You just have to hold metal rods and walk around.
corona motor, making it turn.
So last time I told
pyramid.
you that the water erosion around the Great Sphinx suggests that it's at least 12,000 years old. What I didn't tell you is that there was a group of researchers, including Graham Hancock. They mapped the stars and turned back the clock to about 11,000 BC. What they discovered is that about...
Is that a dick? Is that a little choder? Why are you showing me like a little choder? The fuck, man?
11,000 years ago, on the summer solstice, was when the constellation Leo rose with the sun.
Okay.
So that means the Sphinx is facing the great lion in the sky right on the summer solstice. But on top of that, at that exact same moment, the belt from the constellation Orion perfectly lines up with the orientation of the pyramids. The entire layout of the Giza plateau serves as a time capsule telling us exactly when it was built. I'm not going to get too deep into it in this.
I don't think Pyramid of Giza. So I thought 26th century BC. You're off by about 10,000 years. 10,000 years, Greg. That's not a little bit. Did you or Hannah notice anything odd about Armored Skeptic during the Bible Reloaded days? I mean, odd in that he just sucked. Like, not like... he wasn't like,
I hope you
being
have
conspiratorial.
A fantastic day.
Privately. Sky Comment, thanks everyone to a Vexer. Why is he yipping?
It has the juice.
Over his food and water, and he just went whoop.
33 is the lat and long of the pyramids, a clear indication of the Illuminati. It's also a dog whistle for fans of Triple Mango, the 33rd Baskin Robbins flavor. Keep your eyes open, sheeple. Is that true? Is that the 33rd flavor of Baskin Robbins? Thanks for the videos. Mango? Ah, it's delicious. I could eat mango.
This video, but there seems to be a great cosmic connection between Orion and Leo.
The Latin long is 29.9 and 31.1. Well, that's not how they didn't do it math right. F bombs for you. Thanks for the raid. I hope you had a good one. We're watching Armored Skeptic think that the pyramids are batteries.
Leo. They seem to be eternally linked together. But this relationship is not just observed in Egyptian religion, it's actually observed by every religion. The first clue is that the constellation Orion is often depicted as either battling a lion or holding a lion.
That's fine.
They blended it for some reason.
I'll be okay.
Okay.
It's not a big deal.
I
I'm not
hope you
picky.
have a fantastic
Stinky
day.
boosh! Thanks for the prime. Do you have a straw, though?
No. Oh, wait, yeah.
I need one.
They actually gave us some.
I need one now. They blended
I don't know why
it.
they blended
Did you
that.
click the blended option?
No.
You sure?
I'm pretty damn
No,
sure.
you chose a coffee frap. That's why.
No, I didn't. I picked the ice.
It says frap right there.
Well, that's not what I
You
ordered.
silly little goose.
I ordered the...
Is this paper? Oh, what is this? It's just like a thick... I like the texture. Anyway, I'm sure it'll be fine. Fraps or whatever. An oat milk coffee frap. Is it just oat milk and coffee? Looks good. Tastes like oatmeal.
Little cubes of butter, bro. I got a bagels.
Oh, enjoy. Thank you. It's interesting that he's seeing people anthropomorphize shapes that look anthropomorphic across cultures, and he's like, oh, that's weird.
Orion is often depicted as either battling a lion or holding a lion. The Egyptians called it Osiris, the god of death and renewal, probably because it went away at the end of the season when winter began, which is the dry season in northern Africa and Mesopotamia. Nature was obviously less bountiful at this time, so it would have been very beneficial to know when there was less food to eat. When Osiris came back in the spring, the sun would sit above his head as it rose above the horizon. This would bring the spring melt, which resulted in the Nile River flooding.
doing
The Nile
astrology now?
still
Oh,
floods
yeah.
every year.
He's in
this
all
is
of it.
from snow melting on the mountaintops further south. But the Nile River has actually migrated quite a bit. Back in ancient times, the river actually traveled much closer to the Giza plateau, and during the flood season, it actually turned the plateau into an island. It's possible that the ceremonial importance of the Giza plateau has to do with the fact that it was an island in ancient times. Perhaps a group of hunter-gatherers got trapped there and had to use it as refuge, kind of like the Giza plateau was an ark where they could keep all their animals and their food to be safe during the flood season. We know from stone circles across northern Africa that the
It is probably not Egypt where the Ark story comes from. There are stories from, like, is it the Epic of Gilgamesh? a king essentially like river rafts on his house down a river and saves all his animals in the same way.
The Africans already knew about astrology at this point, but it was from the Giza plateau that
Peachiness! Thanks for the 11 months! Top men are taking care of it. No, Noah's Ark happened, but it wasn't religious, guys. It wasn't a religious event.
they really honed their religion. I also told you in the previous video that I also believe that the Sphinx used to be a lion because the head seems to have been recarved, but the head also seems to be made from a different material, which means that perhaps there was no head at all. And if you look at the fine details of the Sphinx, like all of the lion parts are all brick. None of them are actually part of the original stone. And the core body of the Sphinx is the most eroded part. So what's underneath all that brickwork? Well, if you take a top-down look of the Sphinx, you get sort of a round part on one end, and then sort of a flat part on the other. Makes a keyhole shape, or maybe a fish. The stone is the shape of Orion.
Greg, I'm sorry, it's not. It isn't the shape of that. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's like in that like my phone is also the shape of that. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I'm Kaiser Sozeing it. This fucking peanut jar. You see how it bevels in the center? It bevels. The middle is thinner. It's just like Orion. Oh my god. I guess I have to eat some honey roasted peanuts now. Please continue.
It's the exact same shape as the Tesla Tower. You actually
It has the juice.
So it is both the shape of Orion
it's
and the shape of this at the same time? Is the Tesla Tower the same shape as the other one though? What?
It has the juice.
Yeah, that's the Epic of Gilgamesh. Isn't the epic an epic? Doesn't it involve stories of that? It could be. Maybe it's just also Akkadian or something. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for the biddies. Dr. Gamble, I thought you said the face on the Sphinx eroded away, so it wouldn't change the original shape. No, he's talking about the other. It's different.
It's the exact same shape.
Look, it's the exact same shape as this. It's the exact same
as the Tesla Tower. You actually see this keyhole shape in other places around the world. Most people don't know about this row of keyholes in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is home to a lot of really important ancient artifacts that they just hide from the rest of the world. This is Japan. There's actually a bunch of them in this picture. And this is what they look like naked without any trees. Technically, this is a type of pyramid. Most cultures that have incorporated the Sphinx seem to see it as a female. The Greeks certainly saw her as a female, and I'm betting
this is actually a free energy device. That's true. My penis, anyway.
Egyptians did too. The Egyptians actually had a female cat goddess named Sekhmet. She took several different forms depending on her mood. One as simple as a tame little house cat. The Sphinx actually represents the relationship between Leo and Orion, and I can actually do a video on just the subject alone showing how all religions still show homage to this relationship and how they all tie back to ancient Egypt. And if you remember in our last video, I discussed the lost civilization of Tartaria. Remember their flag was a griffin, and a griffin is just another version of the Sphinx.
No.
You'll also notice that the griffin is standing on 3 legs. I'm sure you've heard the riddle of the Sphinx from Oedipus Rex. When it walks on 4 legs in the morning, that represents childhood. When it stands on 2 legs in the afternoon, that represents adulthood. And when it walks on 3 legs in the evening, that represents old age, like it's walking on a cane. Well, I want you to start looking at statues that are outside of these government buildings. Look at their lion or their sphinx or even their horse, whatever animal they've got. Look to see how many legs it's standing on. If you find a statue standing on 3 legs, what that's indicating is that that ties back to the oldest tradition. So after ancient Egypt fell from the flood and then tried to rebuild it.
What does that even mean? The oldest tradition of what? So if you draw anything with 3 legs, now you're like fucking you're doing the thing. They couldn't have simply just done 3 legs because they seen it in other stuff. I don't know, bro.
Self afterwards and spread across the earth. All of these emerging cultures ended up rediscovering this technology and even improving it over time. Even as they evolved this technology into the Victorian era, they were still using animal symbols and hieroglyphics to describe what these buildings and what these machines were doing. I can't really go over what they all mean in this video. These swirls at the top of the Greek pillar could...
Oh, God. Fucking... We're doing columns. Is that a Doric? Ionic? I think we got an Ionic on our hands. That's right. That's an Ionic column right there.
Be communicating a toroidal field, which is also generated by the top of a Tesla coil.
Ionic columns.
Bird wings are also an important feature.
Coils.
Almost every nation ever has the symbol of an eagle with its wings spread wide open. That actually represents an electromagnetic field. If you look at what a magnet does to a bunch...
That's what people are drawing when they draw eagles. They're like, actually, it's not an eagle. The common thing I see, not birds that I see around. It's actually electromagnetic fields that I'm referencing when I draw eagles and birds. That was the secret that has been behind my choice of drawing birds. I haven't been drawing birds, guys. Not a bird drawer personally.
Of metal files, it makes it look like a couple of wings that have spread open.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm going to save that for another video. The point I'm making is that there's a ton of ancient Egyptian symbols that we still use today that we really don't know the meaning of. If you learned about this in school, you were likely taught that atmospheric energy collection technology is a dead end. But it's stupid to abandon a technology because its base form doesn't really create that much energy. That would be like after the invention of the first 2-stroke motor, they put it into an RV and realized it couldn't get it up a hill, so they just abandoned the engine. You can improve an engine. You can add more cylinders, you can compress the air intake, you can add better injectors, you can open up the exhaust. There's lots of ways to scale that technology up. So if you could scale up that atmospheric energy just enough to boil water, then you could use that steam to
I don't know. Look, I don't know what open up the exhaust means, but it doesn't sound like a thing that would improve your engine function. I'm guessing. I have no idea. I'm not a car guy. That just sounds like lingo that doesn't make sense. Open up your exhaust? I've never heard that ever.
Run an electric generator or power a steam engine. And electric steam engines were a thing. Those existed back in the steam era. You could also negatively charge the antenna, which would help encourage atmospheric energy transfer, maybe even magnetize it. Next, you could ionize the air, and I think that this is where running water comes in. You don't need a large particle collider to create ions. You don't need a large laboratory. All you need to do to ionize the air is drop water.
There are some processes that are constantly generating atmospheric ions. As water droplets collide with each other or with wetted surfaces with high velocity, the water molecules create this electrified spray with negative ions that can be transferred to the air around it. Depending on your distance from the waterfall, ion levels can reach tens of thousands of ions per cubic centimeter.
How many ions per cubic centimeter? To run a car? I don't even know. Measurement of ion concentration in gasoline and diesel. Let's see. Fuck. I'm seeing 3.3 times 10 to the 6th power centimeters squared. Actually, negative squared. What the fuck? Cubed, actually? Much more power than some ions near a waterfall.
But doing that creates oxygen molecules that negatively ionize the air. So you would have to reverse the polarity of the antenna if you did that. So if you have running water going underneath the structure, it could be creating negative ions that fill the building up, which would help negatively charge the structure. And that would make the whole structure a negative magnet pulling positive ions out of the sky. And a lot of people seem to think that they feel health benefits to being in negative.
James from the internet, thanks for the raid. I appreciate you. We're watching Armored Skeptic. I'm not sure if you're aware of this man. Saying that the pyramids are actually batteries. Welcome.
Charged ionized areas. Drinking ionized water supposedly is healthy too. I can't really speak
Negative
to that, but I can
vibe
say that
merchants?
when
Oh,
I
no.
hang out in negatively ionized areas like Niagara Falls or behind the falls in the tunnels, I feel really good. So if these structures were using ionized air, they were also creating ionized water, and perhaps they were feeding this ionized water to people, and maybe that's why we have a cultural memory that these old churches and cathedrals had holy water, because we expect when we go there that there's supposed to be this special water there waiting for.
Is this motherfucker speculating that holy water is the result of people going to church and getting like ionized like nano bubble water? Jesus fucking Christ. I don't know if you guys know who Russell Wilson is, but this is some Russell Wilson shit. This is some bullshit. Zarian, catch a butterfly. Thanks for following, dudes.
For us. Since we forgot what it was for, we just said, oh yeah, the priests, they bless it, and then they drown your baby in it. There's a rich collection of archived information that's been recently released out of Switzerland. They're scanning it all and putting it all on the internet for us. Some of the stuff that's coming out of this archive will absolutely blow your mind. People before the modern era had a very different philosophy behind science and a very different perspective of the universe.
Yeah.
You've likely heard of alchemy, basically the precursor to chemistry. Alchemy is some crazy wizardry that I'm not even remotely qualified to discuss.
Dude, Ron DeSantis is about to ban this guy.
But they also had a completely
Get your
different
angel dick outta
understanding
here.
of physics. Recently, I found a couple things from the late 1600s and early 1700s that supposedly came out of this archival collection. This
Free speech warrior Ron DeSantis, you don't know him?
poorly scanned drawing is depicting a monument, one very much like this. If you look at these curved lines, each numbered with Roman numerals,
Look at those curved lines, just like all the curved lines in this one. And the curved lines make this a battery for Christ. And then it charges their holy water at the bottom. That's right.
they seem to be depicting the exact same principle of layers of ions
The
that I
baby
demonstrated
salts. Smart. The baby salts will increase the ionized waters. That's true. You gotta get your freshly dipped baby salt water. That's the holiest water you can get. That's why Matt Walsh is so invested in the kids. Because he just needs his baby salts.
earlier. These kinds of monuments can be seen on the ground, usually as a centerpiece in a park, or they can also be on the top of a large classical building like the massive government building in San Francisco. So this diagram is hint number 1, but this second diagram This really changed my life. There are two structures. The one on the left is a tower, like a church tower, with an antenna on the top. And there seem to be lines coming down from the air, hitting the top of the tower. That's interesting enough on its own, but when you look at the tower on the right, it seems to be ejecting something into the air. Then above that, the artist has clear...
Greg, don't you understand how lines work? Sometimes you get lines, and sometimes you give them. It's science, Gregory. Line science. I can't believe Canada doesn't teach line science. I scoff. I scoff at your idiocy.
Clearly demonstrated an
Weevil
air
the
pocket.
Womble.
It's holding whatever the second tower is ejecting into the air,
First
and then
line
it's
is free?
transferring it over to the first.
Wait, are you offering lines? I don't do lines, Chad. I'd like it too much.
First tower. This is actually from a physics book that's dated to the late 1600s, and it's written in Latin. My Latin's not that great. I don't know about you, but I spent a little while reading this and trying to figure out what it was trying to depict. This tower on the right, with what appears to be an open top, is ejecting things like black powder, sulfur. Basically, it's ejecting some sort of a cloud of explosive materials like
Good, that sounds fine.
gunpowder.
Just plumes of fucking black, flammable powders into the air. Yes, free energy for everybody. Let's fucking go. The Waffle House billboard is a Tesla coil. Oh, fuck. And that's why they're always up in hurricanes, because actually the power grid, they don't want you to know this, the power grid is hooked up to Waffle Houses. Waffle House is actually what it's all run through. Ranger and Rogue, both of them. Thanks for following, dude.
Pocket of air is holding that cloud and is creating...
So you get your sneak attack, multi-attack, and also access to a limited variety of spells that also have good synergy with your rogue abilities later on as you level up, Chad. That's why you do that.
Love? So I'm thinking that love means some kind of a harmony or a marriage of these elements in the air, and then the air is carrying it over to the tower on the left with the antenna. So this is the strange part. The tower on the left with the antenna, this is all it says.
Milton Katana, thanks for following. That's all it says.
Naturally. Basically, the book is implying that, and then naturally, you get the process over here. So like the diagram is assuming that the reader already knows what's happening to that first tower. Like this is the obvious part of that process that everyone should already know. So what if the tower on the right is collecting water to ionize the air, mixing it with gunpowder, then it feeds it down under the ground through aquifers underneath the main structure, and that effect is creating a charge that the main building is able to collect. So this is when I realized that almost every surviving neoclassical building is or was part of a grid, a row of structures that are always adjoined with each other.
No.
There's always a domed or a towered structure on one side with an antenna or a weather vane of some sort.
And 100% of buildings.
On the other side is usually...
Oh my god, this has nothing to do with Enlightenment ideals. This has nothing to do with Hellenism or the Romanticism of like fucking Roman architect. I mean, look, we have Ionic columns right here, baby. Like, man, this is just so fucking bereft of any sort of anthropological like context. He's dropped it all. He has no interest whatsoever in what any expert has to say about history. He's just dropped it all. He's dropped it all to be like, look at these things that look alike. Doesn't the Sphinx, if you go in a helicopter and look straight down at it, doesn't it look a little bit like a keyhole? So does my cat, Greg. So does my cat. Look at you stand over your cat loafing, and you just look down at your cat, and you're like, yep. I guess you could make a keyhole look like that. Yeah, that's true.
A round structure or an oval structure. It's not always round, but usually
his brain's cooked. His brain got cooked from the fucking nanobubbles in his electrified holy water at his local church.
Always has either an open top or open sides.
microwaved by the Tesla coil
secondary
he
structure
built in
is
his garage.
almost always directly next to flowing water. Of course, rivers.
Wow, I wonder why cities are built next to flowing water, Greg. It must be the Illuminati power cables. It must be the fucking power grid that's been around since 12,000 BCE. Couldn't have to do it all with our need for fresh water. Nothing to do with our human needs for that +1 food production per time. Oh, see, yeah. You know, you get it.
It's cold.
That's also true. Bronze Golem, thanks for following. Just absolutely wild stuff, Gregory.
Over time deviate and change shape. Sometimes you get both buildings adjoined into one, a round half and a tower half, but that appears to be less common. There's usually other features in this grid as well. There's almost always an obelisk or a pillar or a tall statue, some sort of pointed feature in the park that's a focal point. Now there's a fourth feature that these grids will have, and it's the least common one, or at least the hardest one to find evidence for if it's no longer around, and that is a water fountain or a water feature of some sort. I know what you're thinking. Every building has a water fountain. True, but I'm thinking that
every building has a water fountain? That is not what I was thinking. Every building does not have a water fountain. That's actually not a thing I think any person thought. What?
Tradition actually started as a way to feature this ionized water.
What a strange finish to the I know what you're thinking. It looks like another dick here, though. Jardin du Trocadero. That's how you say it. Don't look it up. It looks like a dick.
Let's look at Paris. This is an
Can you see it? Can you see how much it looks like a dick, chat? Here, wait. Enhance. Computer enhance. Dick. There's a dick right there. There it is.
Dream example, but I thought that we'd start here because this is what Da Vinci Code was talking about.
Da Vinci Code. Look at that. It's a dick there, too. Pattern recognition and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. It's also, I mean,
It's cold.
you could say some good has come from the pattern recognition. I'd argue some good stuff. Thanks for the biddies. Absolute disgrace. Morbertoth, thanks for following, dude.
Usually these are laid out in a rectangle. On one side here we have what is now a military building. It looks more like it used to be a palace. And behind that is a small obelisk. We'll call this Building 1. Then the grid extends into the park, and we cross our first water feature. Further into the park we have the Eiffel Tower itself, surrounded by water. An entirely metal structure piercing high into the ionosphere. Then we continue to the other end, past, yes, a running
High into the ionosphere.
river, and we have a giant water fountain with extremely powerful jets firing directly towards the Eiffel Tower. But the really tragic part about this particular grid, the secondary structure has been gutted. Example number 2, here's the Vatican. The main structure, of course, is St. Peter's. Then we have an obelisk and fountains in the square. Then you follow this
Obelisks and fountains. By the way, this is so... It's so interesting. He goes, and look at this. The Vatican and also Paris. Those are right next to each other. They're right next to each other. Do you think there's any reason culturally that they might have similar features to each other at all? Do you think there might be anything, you apply anything to water features, obelisks, displays of grand domes or any of that? It's all power generation. For what? To do what with it? What would they do with it, Greg? What was the application of the technology? Please take it one step further. What do they do with it? What do they do with it, Greg? I don't know what they would do with the power, even if they were generating it. What are they? Is it the aliens? Is it the lizards? Is it the lizard people?
the this straight line all the way down, and next to the
Look at that straight line.
flowing river, a round structure, Castle St. Angelo. And the neat thing about this grid is it actually makes the shape of a key. Clearly, these structures are meant to be associated with each other. Example 3, Washington, D.C. The Capitol building is the main structure, and the Washington Monument, of course, is the obelisk. With the reflecting pool, that's the fountain. Then at the other end is the Lincoln Memorial, next to flowing water, and of course has open sides. And this grid
Damn. Must be power.
actually forms across. There are 2 complexes here sharing the obelisk.
What about the tidal basin? What's that? What role does that play?
We've got the White House on one end, that's the main structure. Then on the other end is the Jefferson Memorial next to flowing water, and of course also has open sides. Honestly, I could show you hundreds of these, they're all around the world, but I'm just gonna show you one more, my hometown of Kingston, Ontario. Of course, City Hall, that's the main structure.
Yeah.
Then on the other end is a Martello tower we call Shoal Tower, and that's literally inside the water. There's actually 4 of these Martello towers in Kingston, but there are hundreds of them around the world. These are defensive towers, and supposedly they were designed specifically to fend off ships. So every single one of them is either on the water or in the water. Then in the center of the park is a water fountain, and though there isn't an obelisk of any kind, there is a ring on the ground that is right where I would want an obelisk to be.
Right where you'd want it to be, huh? The ring? The ground ring? Well, ground rings are obviously very good substitutes for obelisks. Everyone knows an obelisk can be just you ground ring it, easy.
There used to be a triangular defensive...
You mean it sounds like delusional pattern seeking. You don't say. I'm shocked. I can't believe that you would say something so surprising. About how he's looking at this. I thought he's a skeptic, okay? He is a smart man. He's skeptical.
Wall on the top of the park here. I was told this is an access
skepticism.
hatch to the pipes under the fountain. But this is right in the middle of the pathway, and it
must have
kind of
lied.
makes an eye of the pyramid shape
They
above
must
City
have
Hall
lied to
here.
you.
And I also found an old record depicting a suggestion to put an elevated platform around the ring with steps surrounding it. I don't know if this was ever constructed. It might have been an old design, but I've even found in obscure small towns that they have this exact grid layout. Sometimes the designers get clever with these water fountains and they combine the function of the pillar and the fountain into a single structure.
It's crazy that he's mystified by this.
So again, back to Kingston, Ontario, we have another building that looks just like
Power
City Hall,
generation.
the Frontenac County Courthouse. There's a water fountain in front of that structure, and you see how it has 2 lions in it? Have you ever thought about why lions are outside of every government building?
No. Because, well, that's not true. I have thought about it. I have the answer, though. Cultural sort of like virtue signaling is the answer. You get me. Lions are also pretty cool. Yeah, it's symbolism. It's, you know, look at us. We're strong. We're strong. We got eagles and lions.
Have you ever noticed how often lions are depicted in water or are associated with water? Lions hate water. They can swim if they have to, and they do swim during the wet season. But you wouldn't think to associate lions with water, yet they very often are. This is because the Sphinx is actually associated with the flood season in Africa. At first, the flood season was chaos. The original people couldn't handle its power, but eventually they made order out of that chaos. They
We Jordan Peterson. Don't Jordan Peterson me.
turn that annual flood into something that they didn't just look forward to, but something that they needed to survive, something that fed the machine. The Great Sphinx is not only the lowest point on the Giza plateau, it's actually below the floodplain. Geologists said to explain the erosion, they needed sustained rainfall for hundreds of years.
I hope you have a fantastic day.
Tangerine Druids, thanks for 10 months. Happy to help. Happy to have you.
And that's why conspiracy theorists say that the Sphinx has to be at least 12,000 years old. But I don't need 12,000 years to explain hundreds of years of rainfall. I just need a few thousand years to explain hundreds of years of sustained water flow.
Isn't it interesting how he framed that? Here's what I need to make this fit. Hey, how people who believe stuff like this don't understand how, if any of this was true, energy crises would make no sense to occur. Yeah, exactly. I'm calling it... Well, no. The man is hiding the secrets from you. They don't want you to know. Is that Mickey? Hi, buddy. Mickey? Damn, I thought you might be able to see Mickey. You can see him in the light. Look at him. Wow. What a glorious beast. Wow. Mickey. Eating his food like a little weirdo.
Look at this strange protrusion behind the arm of the Sphinx. Have you ever wondered what this is?
No.
Anyone who knows water engineering knows that if you want a standing pool of water without it rising too high, then you need to create a water overflow inlet that is exactly as high as you want the water level to rise to. That's right, the Sphinx was a water fountain. In fact, it was actually the main water inlet for the Giza plateau machine.
The Giza plateau machine.
Year during the flood, the river would rise up, the water would pour into the Sphinx, the overflow would go in the inlet behind the Sphinx's arm, through the aquifers, through the Osiris chamber, and under the well beneath the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid famously has all sorts of strange tubes and tunnels carved into the stone. From the King's Chamber, there's two square tunnels that lead outside of the Great Pyramid, pointing up into the sky. If wind is blowing on one side, it's going to force air in through the one tunnel and then out through the other one. And what
So
that
Canadian.
will create suction,
Out.
forcing whatever ionized air is being created in the well up into the King's Chamber. And it's possible that that was also sucking some of water up as well, and that water was flowing out of the Great Pyramid back down into the Sphinx. That's why the Sphinx has all the water erosion, that constant water flow in and out. In and out. That way, if the Nile dried up during the dry season, they still had enough water stored in their system that machine could just keep running. So I think this is why in that neoclassical grid structure, there's always one building right next to the water. That is the water inlet. That thing's pulling in water that's being used by the machine. And
We do not have evidence to suggest that these are the things that these structures were used for. You would see the erosion on the structures themselves, not just the space around. You know? You know, Greg? Stone pipes and stuff. Like, aqueducts are things. They had them later. I'm sure you could look up the ways that the Egyptians dealt with keeping fresh water, and I'm sure it was more sophisticated than you would suspect at first. Rome had very sophisticated plumbing and things like that. Why would they draw water up into the dead king's chamber? Like, there's no evidence whatsoever of that occurring. He thinks like a straw, like fucking the pyramids was like a sucking up the Sphinx waters. I just don't understand. I don't understand, man. I don't know. I don't know what this does for his conspiracy theories either.
And I think the reason they're round is to maximize how far the water has to travel down. The more you make it spiral to go down, the more you end up ionizing the water and ionizing the air. And the thing with water towers is that they can look like any other building. Here are twin water towers. They don't look too different from the Martello towers. Here's another one, again round, has windows, doesn't look too different from the Martello towers. But remember that old physics book also mentioned black powder, sulfur. So I'm thinking that when our civilization came along and we found these structures that had black powder in them, we spun some story about them being defensive structures so that it would make sense to us.
What? What do you think? Wait. Martello Towers. Martello Tower. 19th century. What do you mean when we came across them? We know when we made them. The oldest one. In 70, like the oldest North American Martello Tower. Wow. Like, these are not mysterious things.
This is Murney Tower. It's another Martello Tower in Kingston. This one's actually a museum. I've been in here many times. Yes, it may have been a defensive structure at one point, but more recently it was actually a residence. Even private citizens lived in there all the way up to the 20th century. The red roof on this tower is actually a modern addition. Obviously, with cannons on the top floor, it was designed to have an open top. First of all, can you even live in a water tower? Does that make sense? Yes. Well, we call this structure Hanging Tower, but this is actually an old water tower built in the 1800s for Kingston Penitentiary. Apparently, to this day, the water tank is still up there. And you can clearly see there are windows. There were people living in this building all the way up to the 20th century. So how are the Martello Towers designed? Well, luckily for me, I am ridiculously familiar with these structures. Don't ask me why.
Why, Greg? Why are you ridiculously familiar with them?
Top floor is sloped towards the center, and there's a drain in the floor that leads down through the core. The story is that this is to collect rainwater that was designed to feed down into a cistern, a cavity in the substructure that collected water. There was also a pump to pull the water up from the cistern to the top floor, supposedly to drink. I don't know why you'd want dirty floor water as your drinking water, especially a floor that is probably covered in gunpowder, but that's the official story. I'm proposing here that they also don't want you to see that there's also a pipe.
Why don't they want you to see?
That leads down under the ground towards the courthouse. You could just drain the water straight from the lake into a hole all the way under the courthouse if you really wanted to. But I think that they had to lift the water up to that roof to get enough water pressure to run that water fountain. You can see overflow drains in lakes around the world that work on the same principle as the Sphinx water inlet. Once the water in the lake rises to a certain level, it drains down into a hole, stopping it from flooding the town nearby. With the Martello Towers, I'm thinking the cistern probably was a water reservoir, a collection tank for lake water, and the pump was to pull it up from there and then down through the floor drain, out through another pipe, which would then feed it to the water fountain in the courthouse. There are hundreds of Martello Towers around the world. They may vary in build quality and in size, but the design is universal. So to prove that I'm right, I set out to find one example, just a single example of one of these Martello Towers depicted to have a pipe leading out from the structure. There you go. In the Tesla experiment, the brick building had a water pump with a heater meant to keep the water a certain temperature. It would constantly be...
It's so weird how he doesn't realize that we don't have the narrative of his brain in our brains. Like, that proved something to him because he had context for the image in a way, but I don't know. The picture exists of it. Yeah, exactly. Like, what's that proof of? I have to find one thing that agrees with me. There it is. Okay. Yeah. Skeptic. Armored Skeptic.
Cycling in and out of
Very
that
skeptical.
structure. Whatever the brick building was doing mimics the secondary structure from these grids. But going right from Egypt to the Victorian era, we're missing a lot of stages. There were a lot of steps in between. This technology evolved with us. Or so the conspiracy theory says. Today, the only technology like this that has survived is HARP. There are several of these facilities around the world, and they use the principles of Tesla's work to manipulate the ionosphere, which theoretically could manipulate weather or even cause earthquakes. So when you scale Tesla's technology up, it can do some crazy stuff. If they really did have Tesla technology in the Victorian era, and these grids really were power plants, I can only imagine what that must have been like. How would it look when all of these structures were working in tandem with each other? What would have these parks have been like to hang out in? And what was the black powder for? Were they really burning it all the time? Or were they just burning it for special occasions? I mean, with enough water fountains spraying up mist and all that dust and smoke ionizing the air, that would have been a pretty amazing spectacle. And remember, this video is just for fun. I'm not being serious. I'm just saying, hypothetically, imagine what it would have looked like in the heyday of this hypothetical other civilization. Wait a second. There's another picture here that I forgot to put in the video.
This is the kicker. This is too loud, Dick. This is too fucking loud. Got it. There's a picture. There it is. That proves it. That proves it. There you go. That picture. Who made the picture? What's this a picture of? What is this? Clearly, it adds up. Is there any? That's it, huh? Got it. Proof. Look at all those people. This took some time, huh? Wow. Well, okay.
I hope you enjoyed my video.
Every drawing ever made was based on reality. That's how I understand it.
Tying Egypt to the Victorian era.
Is he crying?
Join me next time when I talk about everything in between.
Why is he emotional here? What is happening? Am I fucking...
To the Victorian era. Join me next time when I talk about everything in between.
I'm not tripping. I am what no pussy does to I just fucking... Oh, God. Okay. All right. This may come as a shock to you. I do not, in fact, think that the Tesla coil energy thing works. I don't think the Giza pyramid or the other pyramids around there or the Sphinx are involved in a battery situation. And I do not understand why Greg is so unhinged about this. What happened here? I'm keeping it. Oh, it went up through the... Keeping it. Next up... Just been rubbing my fucking head trying to figure out. He's making me get the hairs. Alien skulls are real? That's the next one. It's the one after this. Not this ad, though. I'm not going to watch that ad. We're doing that next, though. I am very fascinated in this topic. Would love to talk to Greg about this kind of stuff. He had been told to stop. Is that what you think? Do you think he's crying because June was like, you gotta stop, buddy? And he's like, I can't stop, babe. I'm telling the world the truth. And she's like, no, you're not. Republicans are. And then she went over and started fucking Republicans. This was too far for her. But the Republican mindset, that's the good stuff.